We are live. Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern. We are previewing UFC 284 Makhachev versus Volkanovski. Early prelims are starting very soon here at 3 p.m. Pacific. Main card starting at 7. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the first fight on the main card between Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield. Crute coming in as a negative 165 favorite, Menifield a plus 140 underdog. And Jimmy Crute is in his last fight. He had a loss against Jamal Hill. Before that, against Anthony Smith, 2 wins before that. So he's been on a bit of a losing streak here lately. Whereas Menifield is coming off of 2 wins, had a loss tonight before that, and some wins previous to that. So Menifield coming in with the momentum on his side. Crute's got something to prove. How do you think this fight's going to play out, Fern?
This is going to be a good fight. I have watched Crute's fights. He's good. I'm excited for this one. I felt in his fight, yeah, he got knocked out by Jamal Hill in less than a minute, but I think he really came out and kind of tried to own the center of the cage and came out trying to establish control early on, keep his distance. Jamal Hill is a taller fighter for the weight division, and I think he showed that he could hang with somebody up until he did. and then and then against Anthony Smith, same thing. Like, I thought that was a close fight, and he ended up getting stopped. It looked like at the end of it was a doctor stoppage at the end of round 1. But other than that, I like what I've seen from him. He has wins over Paul Craig, Sam Alvey, and those are all guys who are, especially Paul Craig right now, who are on a roll and, at the top of the division and, probably breaking into the top here in the next couple of fights. With Menifield, it's definitely hard to deny that he's on a roll. He's got 1 loss in 3 years. But before that, he's lost to Owen St. Preux, Devin Clark. He's got a win over Paul Craig. This will be interesting because doing MMA math, they both have the win over Paul Craig, just to see who's going to be the better. One has him beat by submission, one has him beat by strikes, and hopefully whoever wins, hey, match him up against Paul Craig, get that part 2 going, because I think Paul Craig right now is definitely at the top and has his name mentioned. Just off of this, I would say, I've been more impressed by Menifield's wins. He's got the better TKO ratio. Interestingly enough, Crew has the higher significant strikes. Grappling wise, takedown defense is on Menifield's size. Crute has the more takedowns. Obviously, he's going to look to get it on the ground. I think it's going to be this is going to turn to a striker versus grappler fight, with Menifield being the striker, Crute being the grappler. I'm going to go for Menifield on this one. I want to see him fight Paul Craig again and stand toe to toe with him and try to knock him out again.
Yeah, something that's interesting on the ESPN website, it has Jimmy Crute as his last 2 fights from December of 2021 and April 2021. I'm almost certain that's wrong. I'm pretty sure we saw Crute not too long ago. So I think ESPN fight history stats are off for some reason. But his last fight against Jamal Hill was pretty quick. He lost in the first round. And I was really curious in that last fight because 2 fights ago when he fought against Anthony Smith, you remember how he lost? He lost, I think, via leg kicks, where his leg ended up going dead, and he ended up finishing out the round. Even though he only had 1 leg, he essentially got like a takedown, only having 1 leg. It was really crazy to see. He was like flopping around, but his leg just could not work. And then before the second round started, he went to walk out, and the ref saw him kind of stumble because his foot was still dead, and that's when the ref ended up calling the fight. So I'm curious if he's got some long-lasting damage in that leg. I feel like we didn't get to see in his last fight because it was only 48 seconds. So yeah, there's that element that's something to think about as well. In terms of negative 165 favorite, I feel like, Jimmy Crute's technical ability and having I feel like he's more better grappler for sure than Menifield. I think that makes sense, but maybe what they're not taking into account is, the fact that he's coming off 2 losses, and it's still not clear what's going on with his leg. So in terms of a pick, I'll pick Jimmy Crute. I feel like it's just the grappling is going to overwhelm Menifield. Who'd you pick?
Menifield, just because I want to see the rematch with Paul Craig.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll see how that one plays out. Next up, we have Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. We haven't seen Porter in a while, so this is cool. Very even odds, -125 favorite for Tafa, and Porter the +105 underdog. Very slight underdog. And let's see, Porter. When was his last fight? I feel like it must have been just about a year ago.
Yeah, May 2022.
Yeah, so almost a year ago, where he ended up getting submitted by Almeida. Before that, he had been on a 3-fight win streak, and I like watching Parker Porter's fights. I think, he's not afraid to go into the fire and to throw his shots and get things done. So I think he's an exciting fighter. Not as athletic as some of the other guys in the heavyweight division. So it'll be interesting to see how his conditioning has been going this past year. Whereas Tafa, he's coming off a win against Hunsucker, had 2 losses before that. So this is another case. One guy's got the win momentum in his favor. The other guy's got the loss momentum working against him. What do you think on how this one's going to play out?
I'm excited, dude. These guys are massive. They cut to make heavyweight limit, like 266, and like on UFC.com, it's got a Tafa listed as 286, Porter as 271. If you look at their fight profile, Porter is listed as 264 and Tafa at 266. So these guys are cutting to make the heavyweight limit. That's gonna be an outrageous fight. I don't think it's been a while since we've seen 2 huge guys. I want to say probably like Lewis versus Bam Bam was probably pretty close up there in weight. I'm excited for this one. I think they're both similarly built, 6 feet tall at the weight class, similar reach. I expect this to be a fight that stays on the feet. Tafa has 100% of his wins by KO, TKO. What he's going to come out to do. And interestingly enough, even though he's winning more by TKO, KO, Porter has more strikes landed per minute at 6.49 to his 5. So, and grappling wise, I don't expect to see these guys look to take down. I think they're going to go and look to stand on their feet. I'm excited for this one. This is one that I'm going to be rooting for Tafa just because he's got the hometown crowd. It's going to be nuts, man. That crowd is going to be outrageous. And I think this will be the first fight on the card where they have somebody, a hometown person to cheer for. I expect this to stay on the feet, and if it goes to the ground, it's because they're tired. What are your thoughts?
And Tafa, with his style, like you said, everything's a KO. Every punch he throws, he's trying to KO guy. Whereas you said Parker has a higher land rate. He's more willing to, I feel like box. Not every shot that comes from Porter is, he's not trying to knock you out with every shot. Whereas with Tafa, I feel like he really is. So like you said, we know what both of these guys are going to do. And the question is, who's going to land that punch? Odds makers are saying slightly Tafa. I'd probably agree with that. But I did like Porter in the 3 wins. I mean, he ended up going to decision. So in terms of conditioning, even though I don't think conditioning is great, for either of these guys, I feel like it'll be better for Porter than for Tafa. So if Porter can hang in there, I feel like that'll favor him. Whereas Tafa, with the way he throws, he's not going to have enough energy come the 3rd round. And if you look at his losses, his last 2 losses were in the 3rd round. So that kind of goes to, if Porter can last long enough, I think he'll win. If Tafa can land the KO punch in the 1st round, I think he'll win. And just leaning a little bit more towards Tafa for the KO. Let's see. Next up, this is going to be a fun one. 3rd fight on the main card: Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown. Maddalena coming in as a -330 favorite over Randy Brown, which is if all I knew was that Madalena was going to be a fight, I would guess he would be the favorite because there's not many people that he's not going to be the favorite against. I would expect with his record. He has 13-2, but to be fair, that his 2 losses were his first 2 fights in another organization. Since then, he's been winning. So he's on an 11-fight win streak. He's had 3 first-round KO wins in the UFC. He had his win in Dana White's Contender Series before that. Randy Brown, he is on a 4-fight win streak, a loss before that. He got KO'd, 2 wins before that. He's been in the UFC a lot longer. I feel like a pretty well-rounded, all-around MMA fighter. Madalena, I'm not sure. I feel like he is well-rounded because we've seen him grapple a little bit, some of the wrestling, and I've seen a lot of strikes from him. But his matches haven't lasted that long. Like the most we've got to see him was in Dana White's Contender Series, where he had more fight time in that fight than he did in his next 3 fights combined. So,
yeah, what a crazy stat, man.
It's one of those things, yeah, where it's hard to get information. But if it's hard to get information because you're winning fast, maybe that's all the information you need, I guess. But in terms of styles and trying to figure out how they're going to play out, I feel like it's a little bit harder with Madalena until when he's going up against some of this tougher competition to see him fight for more minutes. So that.
Hey, we're back up. Sorry, it dropped. I didn't pause it. We're still going. We're still rolling. We're still showing.
We're not where it got cut off, but I was just wrapping up the Madalena versus Randy Brown matchup in that we haven't seen Madalena fight a lot in the UFC. He's been super quick to put guys away. So what are your thoughts on the matchup and Randy Brown in particular? That's kind of what I'm curious about. Madalena, he's going to come out trying to put this away in the first round. Clearly, that's what he's done last 3 times. But I'm more interested in how Randy Brown's going to approach it.
Yeah, Randy Brown has some good decision wins over some good opponents. His last win was against Francisco Trinaldo. Trinaldo has wins over Jai Herbert, John McDessie, Bobby Green, Evan Dunham, Jim Miller, Paul Felder, Yancy Medeiros, Ross Pearson. And Randy Brown was able to sneak out that victory. With that being said, I think those guys are all different fighters than Jack Madalena. Madalena definitely has solid striking, is knocking people out, in the first round consistently. I think people know what to expect from him and should have enough tape to know, hey, he's going to come out and strike, and aren't able to do it. It just goes to show his skill level. I think with this one, if Brown's able to incorporate wrestling, which it doesn't seem like he has been able to, I could see him having a chance. With Madalena essentially in a way having a hometown advantage, I think the fight is his to lose. I'm expecting him to continue his winning ways, finish in round 1. It looks like he's figuring people out in the first 2 minutes, and then minute 3 he is shutting them down, and it's consistent. Essentially he fought 3 times last year, and he did the same thing each fight, which is control, look to establish his jab, and then look to finish. And it's not something that he's just swinging and winging and looking to land. Like, he is building these strikes up and looking to land and then finishing it. So this is, I think this is easily, in my opinion, going to be KO of the night for Madalena. If he does, what I think we all expect him to do, like, he's going to come out and showcase his boxing again.
Yeah, and I think Madalena is gonna take this one. And I think it's gonna be interesting. Can you imagine the matchup with like Madalena against Colby Covington or against Usman, or it's exciting to have another guy in that division that's already incredibly stacked. To have a new guy rising to the top who can you can come up with all kind of interesting matchups in that top 5, top 10. So, yeah, this one will be fun. I agree with you. Yeah, it may end up being performance of the night bonus on this fight. let's go to the next one. Yair Rodriguez against Josh Emmett. And Emmett's coming in as a plus 160 underdog. Rodriguez 190 favorite. And I, in our chat before we jumped on the stream, someone posted a picture. I can't remember if that was you or someone else in our group of Emmett, and yeah, he looked like death in that picture that was sent to him from earlier this week. So
Yeah.
I think he must have had a pretty rough weight cut or something. It is a title fight, so you got to cut the extra 1 pound. You don't get the 1 pound allowance when you're fighting for a title. So maybe eking out that last pound, if it was already tough before, makes it extra tough to get that extra pound off. So that'll be interesting how this plays into this fight. Yair Rodriguez, he is, let's see here. He had a win over Brian Ortega in his last fight. Fight before that, he lost to Max Holloway, which was still a good fight. I thought a great fight, even though Holloway, lit him up like a Christmas tree.
Yes.
He had the win over Jeremy Stevens before that. And yeah, just a bunch of, really impressive wins on his record, his 15-3 record. And has some tricky striking for sure. Josh Emmett, pretty good all around, mixed martial artist. He's got really good grappling, but he's also got some power punches for sure, which I think is a great combo. Get people worrying about those fists, and then you shoot your takedown or vice versa. And Emmett is coming off of a 5-fight win streak. And I'm trying to think, how did this come about, the 145-pound title fight? Is it because Volkanovski was going up?
Yeah. And then in the
to
meantime, to fight tonight's main event. Yeah. In the meantime, to have somebody, in case, whatever he decides to do, if he wins, defend either belt at whatever time. And yeah, either way, I think it's a good way to keep the division moving while, he's pursuing whatever fight he's pursuing.
Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, this will be the interim, which means Volkanovski will be fighting this guy, whoever wins this one, unless he doesn't go back down, which it doesn't seem like. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think Volkanovski is going to come back down to 145 to defend his title? If he wins, assuming he wins. I assume if he loses, then he is going to come back down. But assuming he wins, do you think he'll stay at the higher weight, or do you think he will come back down to defend and try to be the ultimate badass and get another record of the only person to defend in 2 different weight classes, kind of like what Amanda Nunes had going for her for a while?
I think it's great to see him pursuing like a legacy fight to test himself. If anyone doesn't know, he used to be a rugby player. He used to weigh around like 210 consistently, and rugby players are massive. That's one of the things that kind of allured him to this fight, is him saying, "Hey, I've collided with bigger guys all day long for years. Like, what's this guy going to bring to the table?" I honestly think he will stay at 155 if he wins. If Conor wins against Chandler and be like, "I will fight you in a stadium," I think it's one of those fights that I kind of see the groundwork being laid. They're already mentioning Conor versus Chandler being held in Cowboy Stadium, which holds 80,000 people. And, with Conor being their money guy, like, they can make 4 times their pay-per-view profit just on one Conor fight and make him fight again by the end of the year. They probably made more profit than they have in the years without Conor. Like, it's hard to deny his star power, how much money he makes for the company and how many people he brings to the table. And I honestly believe that if Volkanovski wins that and McGregor wins against Chandler, it's going to be an end of the year fight in a huge stadium somewhere. So I want to see it, because I want to see that. I think either way, even if Makhachev wins, which is probably highly likely, and Conor wins against Chandler, like, there's that Dagestan Conor rivalry reignited again. I think it's a lot. It has me thinking about future fights more so than tonight's fight. Either
Yeah.
way, either
So,
way.
so let's circle back real quick. Just
Yeah.
on the Rodriguez Emmett. Who's your pick there?
I would pick Rodriguez. I've liked his finishes and his style a lot more. Yeah, Emmett has wins over Cater and some of these other great strikers. But his win over Cater, I thought was 50-50. I was like not mad when he won, but I was like I thought Cater won. Yair, has become so crazy with his striking. He's solid with his boxing, like Holloway. He's able to do like fancy kicks, stuff like that. He's pretty consistent, and I would like to see Yair win. Either way, I don't think either one of these guys beats Volkanovski. But
Yeah.
Yair for me is the person who is bringing the more depth, well-rounded game. And Emmett, like we can't ignore that fight. Like it was an interview right after the weight cut. He looked depleted and drained, and he's 5'6". So like the fact that he looks even more drained than Yair, who's almost 6 feet tall, that says something. Like he's struggling to make that weight cut, and who knows? Maybe after this fight he decides to go up, or yeah, I don't know, because he's a solid, massive guy, kind of like a Volkanovski. And he did not look good at all in that picture.
So here's my thought. I'm gonna pick Emmett on this one. Yair is 30 years old. Emmett is 37. So Yair's got the advantage, probably conditioning wise, being the younger guy by 7 years, which makes a big difference. But I feel like this is Emmett's shot. He's on a 5-fight win streak. This is like he's getting close to the top of the division. If he gets this win over Yair, I feel like he's well, I mean, it's an interim fight, so he's definitely going to be. If he ends up winning, he'll be fighting for the title. So this is his shot to go for the title shot. He's been around fighting since 2011. So if he ends up losing this, I don't see him getting a title shot against Volkanovski anytime soon. Personally, I feel like he's already going to be a big underdog. But if he first loses to Yair then loses to Volkanovski, it's going to be hard to make the case that he's going to have a shot against Volkanovski. I feel like, again, anytime soon. So I feel like there's going to be a lot more riding on it for Emmett. Like this is his shot to like shine,
do or die.
Yeah, for his career. So I feel like he might come out with some desperation, that and some motivation that might drive that. So we'll see.
What are the odds on this one again?
Negative 190 in favor of Rodriguez.
Okay. Damn, that's bigger than UFC had it as.
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's not as big of a gap as the next fight, which is we'll get into it. Makhachev versus Volkanovski, which we already been talking about a bit, because it's somewhat related. Since Volkanovski going up a weight class to try to become the double champ, and wouldn't it be interesting if Volkanovski becomes the double champ and then challenges Conor? On the premise that they, it's champ versus champ essentially. I don't know. I feel like there's all kinds of angles, and Volkanovski seems to he doesn't talk shit like Conor McGregor, but you can tell like he kind of enjoys, jabbing people and getting under their skin and talking crap, which I think is fun. But first of all, what do you think of these odds? Do you think those odds are accurate? Do you think Islam is really that big of a favorite?
I want to say just kind of, looking at their team's history of how they implement game plans, that he's essentially in one way or another a training partner, Daniel Cormier of Khabib, and those guys just know how to implement a game plan like no other. Their win against Oliveira was beautiful. Like, I don't think he was in trouble at all the whole fight. Had him hurt on the feet, obviously finished it on the ground. That was amazing to watch. And Oliveira has great stand up. Everyone who he's fought has tagged him, but he's tagged them back, whether that be Gaethje, Chandler, he's Poirier, all those guys, Ferguson. And the fact that Islam tagged him when he's not known for that, and then calmly and swiftly like just finished him with the submission, I think that's something that's hard to ignore. I love Volkanovski, but his wins against who he's beat Holloway by decision. He beat him up the whole fight. Ortega, Holloway, like Aldo, all these fights, they're close and they're wars, but you're like, can he sustain that with a grappler? Like, you just can't ignore that grappling cardio, that grappling game planning. I definitely think, yeah, I think they're right, but in my heart, I think this is still going to be a closer fight than people think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so my thought was kind of similar. I feel like Makhachev is probably going to win, but I feel like with plus, are you ever going to see Volkanovski fighting as a plus 310 underdog? In the 145 division, probably not. So I feel like if you like to bet on Volkanovski, this is your chance to actually make some money off of him for once instead of him being such a huge favorite. So, but what was interesting to me is when I saw the matchup where they, during the face-off, Makhachev is so big compared to Volkanovski.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I feel like skill-wise, Volkanovski, especially his last 3 or 4 fights, he's continued improvement, and his striking seems so sound now. Like, he's very defensive, but he explodes on the offense, covers a lot of ground really quickly. He's pretty strong guy, so the grappling, even though that's not his background, like Islam, I don't, he's not top wrestling caliber in terms of the best wrestlers in the UFC, but he can probably hold his own with most people. The question is, can he with Islam, when Islam has such a size advantage and also has that long background in grappling. And it's crazy about this one is Islam, both heard these guys' records: 23-1 for Islam, Volkanovski 25-1. Volkanovski's on like a 21 fight win streak. Islam's on 11 fight win streak. Islam's is completely inside the UFC. Volkanovski, to get the 20 fights, he was fighting in other organizations before that. But, two Titans, two guys who are at the top of their game, probably feel invincible. The confidence for both of them has to be incredibly high. I feel like there's no edge mentality-wise, because both of these guys, if you've been winning that long for that many years, that many fights in a row, you get to take that into the octagon. And
losing hasn't crossed your mind in years. Like,
so this, man, I feel like if Islam does start to win, we could see Volkanovski get desperate. I was thinking when we watched the Ortega fight, remember when Ortega got Volkanovski into that guillotine? It was tight, and you got to see what you never get to see with Volkanovski, which is like, holy shit, he could lose, he's in real trouble, and Volkanovski's just like, hell no, and just he just tries, just freaks out and explodes out of there, and then 2 seconds later he's in another submission and similar thing. So that's why I think the fun moments will come, is when I feel like Volkanovski's definitely going to be in trouble in this fight, whether he wins or not. And when those moments happen, those are going to be the oh shit moments, and are going to be super exciting. So this will be a good one. And both of us were picking Makhachev, but it seems like both of us think there may be a little bit of value in betting on Volkanovski.
Volkanovski, if you look at his last, basically his fight since 2019, when he first started, when he fought Jose Aldo, he's been fighting strikers: Aldo, Holloway, Ortega, Korean Zombie, Holloway. His last fight against a real wrestler was against Chad Mendes in 2018. And you look at Makhachev, he's training with the best grapplers, with Khabib's and Daniel Cormier's and all them daily. So I don't know if anyone in Volkanovski's camp has that type of wrestling pedigree. And, Makhachev has Olympic wrestlers in his corner, Sambo, champions, UFC champions daily. Like, I don't know. It's, and the fact that, Brian Ortega was able to get a submission on Volkanovski. He's not known for grappling as much as he's known for striking. I think if Makhachev lands that kind of, opportunity, he's gonna finish it. He's got the greater strength, like that grappling strength that wrestlers have is just unmatched when it comes to submissions. Like, I remember watching this show, Sports Science, and they showed like Randy Couture was able to hold a guillotine for like 5 minutes because of the wrestling in his, like, it's just second nature to him. He knows how to adjust his muscles, adjust his shoulders, his arms, everything, and sustain that pressure and not really expend much energy. And I think, if you're gonna say somebody in MMA can do that right now, it's gonna be Khabib's team. So
Yeah,
Makachev,
for
I
sure.
could see him landing a submission victory, and just being able to hold it and not tire his arms out like some of these others guys do, where they just put everything into it and then their arms are gone. Um,
Yeah.
so I
All
think
right. Well, this is going to be a fun one. Any last thoughts before we sign off, Vern?
no, we'll be having some original content up in the next couple weeks. Still working on that Steve-O prediction video. Hear his opinions on it. And then going forward, we'll probably be doing these band fight clubs on Mondays or Tuesdays. Give us more time to get some more views. Got some upcoming interviews with some local fights here in Medford, Oregon coming up. Interview with Ezekiel Flores. All of them looking to get in the local MMA scene here and kind of expand our viewership locally and, work our way up to the big leagues.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right. Signing off for now.
All right, take care.